The South African Communist Party Central Committee has resolved to continue to contest next year's local government elections. Party General Secretary Solly Mapaila has warned against select amnesia of certain ANC leaders who accuse the SACP of being opportunists. Mapaila says the party will continue to contest because the ANC has failed to transform the tripartite alliance. Now, the SACP's desire to contest the local government elections alone has increased the danger of further fracture within the alliance relations with the ANC. Let's chat to SACP spokesperson Mbulelo Mandlana about these developments and more. Mbulelo, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. So, as the SACP, for example, listening to the General Secretary, he says that the SACP doesn't want to break away from the tripartite alliance, but at the same time, the SACP will not tolerate what it calls ANC's arrogance, and that this is due to largely the ANC refusing to reconfigure the alliance's terms to include more of a consensus when it comes to decision making. So one would ask, right, how are you staying within an alliance where the ANC appears to be not budging on one of your demands?
Good afternoon. What was important for us as the Communist Party to articulate in this recent Central Committee is that our decision to contest elections on our own is a decision with which we still are resolute. But there is no contradiction between us being in the alliance and contesting elections, because the alliance was never founded on a guarantee that the South African Communist Party would be permanently barred from participating in the elections. So for us, in that sense, there is no contradiction between us doing the actions now we are undertaking to prepare for elections and being in the alliance. And also to the other part of your question that you were asking, whether or not the Communist Party is typically, if you will, use the term having its cake and eating it too. That cannot be a good argument, because the point about reconfiguration was going to be necessary even if the Communist Party was not going into the elections. So therefore, the question of reconfiguration of the alliance and the changing in the way you have perfectly defined of decision-making and creating consensus-seeking instead of majority determination, that principle is valid even if the Communist Party goes or doesn't go into elections, because the validity of it is not subject to the question of elections.
So if you never get your way on this point, are you leaving or staying within the alliance?
That is such a pessimistic prediction on your side.
It's a valid question to ask, because it's a valid question to ask because, I mean, you've seen what's been said in the public domain, for example, about the decision to go at it alone. You've seen how the ANC, even in public, has articulated through its Secretary General on your decision to do this next year. So one would ask the question to say, what happens if you never get to this point of seeing eye to eye on this matter? Are you leaving the alliance?
We don't get the pleasure to join the speculation. Ours is a struggle of reality, not of estimations. So what we are trying to do in this instance is to bring about a certain consensus in the alliance about how it can be reconfigured, because we believe in the validity of the alliance. If we believe in the validity of the alliance, we are not sitting on plans to create an exit plan. That is not on the Communist Party's chart board. To that extent, the question you are asking, therefore, for us does not arise, because we are functioning on the basis that there is a historical legitimacy to the alliance and therefore a historical necessity for its continuation.
Yeah, you know, one would ask, right, in any organization, if you're making decisions, there's scenario planning. You plan for if you will get your way and if you will not be able to get your way. And I suppose this is something that the SACP has probably planned for, to say, if you never get your way, what then?
No, ma'am. I don't think it is correct for you to insist on this line. Let me make this point one more time. The Communist Party is not doing a scenario planning of an exit of the SACP from the alliance. Whatever analysis we make is on the basis of the concrete conditions we look at the time, and whatever plans we have is on the basis of what our vision is and how we can achieve that vision. The vision of the National Democratic Revolution as it stands can be achieved in the context of an alliance with a mass movement, and the ANC is that mass movement with a progressive character, even though, of course, in the short term, there are these particular issues of contest, political and ideological, we are going through as a phase, not as a final determination of the fate of the entire revolutionary alliance.
So then one would then ask the next question to say that you do have people who, some analysts who've been watching the developments, especially when you made the decision that you will be contesting the upcoming local government elections, and some say it's anything but ideologies. In fact, some are reading into this to say that it's more political. It's more about politics than it is about the difference in ideologies, because some argue that if it was a difference in ideologies, you would not have stayed in an alliance that was so different all this time. How do you respond to someone who raises that question?
That is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There are a lot of gains that were made by the alliance. The democratization of South Africa, the building of a single country, the building of a unitary state, the destruction of tribal government authorities, the building of a national democracy, the building of the current government system by which our people have improved their capacity to govern themselves. To damn the whole history of the alliance in the last 30 years to nothingness is not to understand and appreciate the progress that South African people have made. However, that progress does not mean that all that we must do has been achieved. Hence, there is a need for renewed tactics. Part of the renewed tactics that the Communist Party is considering necessary at this time is changing our approach in as far as it relates to election in the local government, it relates to election in the national government going forward. So that does not amount to a wholesome contradiction on the strategic questions.
Briefly, before I let you go, when you speak about the change in tactics, some say that even the decision not to have Gwede Mantashe, for example, as part of the Central Committee, may be that change in tactics, given some of the tensions that would be playing out. There is, of course, some reports that suggest that. Is there any truth to it?
No, there is no truth to that. I think we've explained numerous times. Of course, some of our audience are not really willing to take our word for it, I suppose. They have a right to do that. We have been explaining that the decision to no longer have Comrade Gwede in the Central Committee is a consequence of a constitutional process, of his unwillingness to participate in the Central Committee and the leadership structures of the Communist Party. Having been persuaded over time to correct that path, he has not, which means that he probably has a lot on his plate that he possibly could not be able to execute a leadership responsibility in the party for which there is no judgment. He can continue to be a member of the party, but if he's unable to act a leadership role in the party, the Communist Party has no other choice in terms of its constitution, but also a standard of behavior for its leaders to let him go.